The following story is an artistic work of fiction and falsehood. Only a fool would consider it as fact. Chapter 17. I'm Spartacus. March 6th, 2007. Hey B. I know it's been a while, but it's been another busy week, so hopefully you can forgive me, or have been happy for my absence. A few personal things have happened that have been taking a lot of my free time, which I'm not going to discuss here, but I did make time for her as well, with another afternoon out yesterday. While there wasn't anything to match her statement of position on pizza, there were a few lulls to be had at the zoo, and at the movie theater too, amongst others. Is this the real Nurse-kun, B? Anyway, it's 5 o'clock, and time for the news. After the success of our initial foray into the city, a follow-up trek was scheduled for Monday. Yesterday, not last Monday, clearly. I considered the array of options from which to choose, checking weather forecast and assorted websites for further information, and while distracted by those personal issues I mentioned earlier, managed to cobble together a schedule for a social worker's approval. And so it came to pass that I found myself in the home during the day once again, knocking on her door to announce myself, and finding her already dressed this time, arms, legs, and all. Well, except for her boots again, which I quickly helped her with. We'd discussed the previous venture throughout the week following it, and she said that she'd definitely enjoy it, so she was clearly looking forward to the day's events. Not quite with the normal kids getting excitement, mine, but for her, close enough. It's not him. While we were waiting for a social worker and our ride to arrive, my having shown up early to take care of preparations, I helped her don her jacket, which was still in her closet, and helped her into her chair, then presented her with a little gift I'd picked up on the way over, telling her that since it was a bit chilly outside, and that I'd be remiss in my duties if I let her catch a cold, I reached into my own jacket and produced a maroon beret and matching scarf and light gloves, then placed them upon her head, around her neck, and on her hands, real and artificial, to retain symmetry and avoid attracting undue attention, respectively. She looked somewhere between surprised and pleased upon seeing them, and the latter grew when I picked up her tabletop mirror and held it up for her to inspect herself, with her reaching up to adjust the beret a little, then nodding her approval. It isn't him. Nurse-kun always introduces himself instead of just popping in out of nowhere. The writing style is also slightly different. Anyway, with a few more minor preparations taken care of, we headed out to the front lobby, waiting there a few minutes and double-checking her backpack of stuff to make sure nothing was left behind, her social worker being a few minutes late as she was. Roughly 10 minutes, as it turned out, with the two of us heading through the doors as the van pulled up and she stepped out of it, offering a short apology and claiming traffic woes. Before much longer, she was loaded up and inside, with my taking my now usual seat beside her, hand in hers, her iPod in place, and off we went. The zoo was on roughly the opposite side of town, so it was a longer trip than in her initial foray, and she kept her eyes squeezed shut, though just one would do it. It'd look somewhat creepy, and it's harder to keep one shut than two, after all, and my hand squeezed tight all the way. OP, stop soiling the good name of Nurse-kun, you fucking son of fuck! It took us about an hour or so to get there, even with the reduced traffic through the downtown core for that time of day, before lunch. But it was worth it when we drove into the vast parking lot, up to the handicap spots near the tunnel that leads into the park itself, and she opened her eyes again. We quickly rolled out of the van, the driver promising to be there to meet us at the appointed time, and the three of us began heading inside. She was clearly moved by being there again, and after a period of silence as we rolled through the tunnel and past the subway station contained within, she spoke up, quietly mentioning that she'd last been here, date a couple of weeks before the accident, and then went silent again. Christ, is this all the same guy, or am I missing a joke here? I mean, I wasn't even really aware that I had a writing style, other than terrible that is. Or that people had somehow committed it to memory, becoming Nurse-kun scholars, hanging with the Chaussier and Shakespeare fags in the cafeteria. Is it something in the air, the phases of the moon, or just the usual B8 bickering dickery? I honestly can't tell. Oh well, on I go. And for the record, I have in fact used the word lulz in these threads at least once or twice, though I can't remember the exact locations. Not true, ED, but confirmed by the BA. Used jokingly and often in reference to a 4chan thing, of course, because I can't see someone using it seriously, much like I used it here. Anyway, moving on now. Putting this douchebaggery aside, back to the story. Then I can get out of here. We got to the gate shortly thereafter, while I was trying not to think about what she'd said too deeply, lest I spend the whole afternoon comparing myself to her parents, and it to her previous visits here, and a whole host of other worries. I'd called ahead to check on whether any schools or groups were visiting that day, only deciding on it once it had been confirmed that no, it'd likely be a low-traffic one. After paying to get in, and getting a special visitor's discount, lucky, we headed into the park itself, and began making the circuit. The new African enclosure was the first place we headed, being close to the entrance and self-contained and heated, the hippos and giraffes being a hit, as she actually began to perk up a bit, and began recounting factoids about the various animals to the two of us. Interesting ones, too, stuff I hadn't heard before, though I admit that I'm not an avid Animal Planet viewer either. Moving on, after my, Jesus Christ, it's a lion, we need to get back to the van, just drew a couple of puzzled looks from the two of them, thus proving that memes rarely achieve life outside the interbud. The nocturnal house was cut a bit short by an anxiety attack, despite my asking her whether she was sure she wanted to head inside in the first place, knowing the problem she had with darkness. Fortunately, it wasn't a monumental one, and once we got back outside, she calmed down relatively quickly, and we headed for the botanical conservatory instead, where colorful birds and fish and plants and such cheer her up again, and we sat down to eat lunch as well.
That frowny joke is beyond believable. I was debating if it was Nurse-kun or not, and now I'm sure it's not. Your writing style is detailed enough, contains too few direct quotes from the lolly, and lacks a certain critical level of introspection about your choices and actions that make the Nurse-kun thread so enjoyable. Nurse-kun is a true B-tard at heart, and has never been particularly rushed or abusive to his audience. He also seems to strive to be a professional whenever he's in a working environment. If this really is Nurse-kun, you have my apologies, but otherwise, fuck off. TLDR, I'm waiting for the next of these threads because I think this one is a fake.
We moved on from there, with the monkey house roughly as pungent as I remember it being from my childhood, and the Eurasian section was popular as well, particularly the bears and tigers. It seemed she had a cat, which explains somewhat why she'd watch said tigers, and lions as well, despite my jackassery. We finally finished the circuit and began heading out again, making a stop in the gift shop to pick up one of the small-sized stuffed lions they had for sale there. The me-sized one seemed somewhat excessive. Why would she have a tabletop mirror? She's got PTSD and serious self-image issues. You'd think her shrink would ban that sort of thing? I call shenanigans. Yeah, fine, whatever. Clearly, I'm not really me, because I'm actually some sort of saint-like being that doesn't get annoyed or tired or stressed out, and wouldn't ever think to himself, Christ, I might as well just stop in the middle with all this bullshit, because it's not worth it. Fuck it. Maybe I'll be back in a few weeks, maybe not. I don't need this shit right now, as I suggested in my first post, and people seem to ignore completely in favor of somehow saying I don't measure up to myself. Congrats, the spammers can't do it, but you people can. Out of here.
Completely in favor. Wait. Since when did Nurse-kun spell with Queen's English?
Real Nurse-kun here. I can only say you guys are surprisingly good at analyzing my writing. I'll be back with an actual thread in a couple of days. Lol, another fake comes in to back up the fake. I guess the spirit of Nurse-kun is alive in all of us. You aren't the real Nurse-kun, I am! Pushes 217277722.